Hi, and welcome to another episode of Money Talk. I am Linda Kaye. I am your host, and today I have a wonderful guest. You know, many of us are thinking about starting a business or getting into a new business, and maybe even starting a business with a hubby or a wife. Well, you're going to find out how easy that is and how easy it looks. See, when it looks easy, we all guess that it must be easy, right? But Zena Krogedal makes it not only look easy, but is easy. And she's going to be my guest today. So I have two requests right now. One of them is if you like what you see, share it. Don't keep it to yourself. And secondly, stay tuned. I'll be right back. Linda gave me the courage, the confidence to move forward.
And after I was finished with Linda Kaye's training, I was at the next level.
It's Linda Kaye. But when you trust that piece of you that says, I got something to give, I have something to say, you know you've got something to do.
Get on your feet, shake your hands in the air. Welcome to the stage, Linda Kaye. Well, I told you that I have a very exciting guest, and I do. And in fact, she might even look a little familiar to you because if you were watching a little while ago, I was on her podcast. So making it look easy and making it live and fun. Welcome to my show, Zena Krogedal.
Hi, how are you?
I am doing fantastic. And of course, because I'm shooting from home, I'm next to the largest helicopter base in the world. And so this is about the time that the screaming jets go flying over and the helicopters just did their whole round. So I'm going to be right back and you're going to stay tuned for 3 seconds. 3, 2, 1. See, I told you how fast that was going to be and I'd be right back. And here I am.
Here you are.
So Zena, talk to me. What kind of business are you in and how did you get into it?
So the business that I am in right now, my husband and I are helping couples going from partners to powerhouses. So we have started a coaching business and relationship coaching. And so it's very, very exciting. Now, we also run a real estate business together. And so this is where our expertise has definitely chimed in. And we've also done ministry together as we've been married for over 19 years. And so we have been partners for a long time. And so it's very exciting.
Wait a minute. You don't look old enough to be married 19 years. Let's start there. Now,
Well,
how in the world, where did you meet this guy and what made you think, okay, well, you know, if we can talk about God, we can talk about anything.
So, well, it is an interesting story, that is for sure. So he was actually a blind date and I was coming out of a broken marriage. So my first marriage, I was married to a high school sweetheart and unfortunately he had a lot of struggles and was an addict. And we had 2 children, beautiful children together, but the marriage itself just was not able to last for a whole host of reasons. And so I found myself just, broken and alone and a single mom and working as a dental hygienist at that time. And I was working on a patient and had a wonderful conversation with her and talked about my life and just talked about how I was willing to meet new people. I just was kind of at a place of just meeting people. And she just called me 3 weeks later and said, hey, remember that conversation we had? I actually have met somebody that I think you should meet. He does my fitness assessments for the last couple of years, and you guys actually have very similar personalities. I think if anything else, you could be friends. He just moved to the area, doesn't know anybody. And I've already told him that you have 2 children and he's willing to give you a call. So I said, okay, sure. Why not? So he gave me a call and we talked for a few times on the phone, and then we met in person, and as you can say, the rest is history. So it was pretty.
Isn't history that you make it sound like it's so easy? first and foremost, when we're thinking about, okay, we've got some life changes that are getting ready to go on. I am ready for a change. I'm ready to meet somebody. We can put up blocks. We can say, okay, universe, I really do want that. But no, he's not tall enough, or he's too wide and I need him narrower. Talk to me about why it's important to understand who it is that you're looking for, what it is that you want in your life, and how to call that in. That's really a key thing here, Zena. Talk to me.
So the first step, I will say, is that I had to take a deep look at myself and find out who I was deep inside, because I did not have the confidence that you have had, Linda, from the very beginning. That was something that I had to really learn and dig deep and bring out. And so I had to discover who I was, where was my identity. First and foremost, I had to become
where was your identity? I mean, you clearly have priorities. You've got two young children. So mom is a priority, but mom still has needs, right?
Right. So I grew up in a very traditional Vietnamese household. And so there was a lot of what you would say, it was a different culture. And so you didn't hear a lot of praises growing up. It was a lot of, definitely zeroing into the way you can improve. And then growing up in the American culture.
Don't gloss over that. A lot of and not a lot of praise. So you wouldn't hear, wow, Zena, great job. Get out there, get in there and just fight.
No, I would hear, why do you have a B on your report card? Were you being lazy? Were you talking in class? What's going on here? And even though I had the majority of A's,
something wrong with you, and not only is there something wrong with you, but you should be able to fix it, because I'm telling you what's wrong with you.
Oh, absolutely. And so I would hear that for quite some time. And my mom had a lot of her own traumas and things that she had to work through, because it was a traumatic thing. I lived a very blessed life, but both my parents grew up in a time when it was a lot of turmoil in their country. And so there was a lot of loss. And my mom had been through many, many things, including having to leave her country unexpectedly at the moment's notice and coming into another culture with a baby. And so if you can imagine the trauma, and then not being able to really discuss that and have that released, because let's face it, there weren't very many people speaking Vietnamese or having therapy or any of that kind of thing. And so she was dealing with a lot of her own things. But for me as a young adult,
was she one of the boat people? Did she come into the United States in the 70s or 80s?
No, we were actually very fortunate, because my father worked for a lieutenant colonel. So he was a chauffeur. So he worked for the American government. So we were actually one of the first to get evacuated out. We left April 24th, and the fall of Saigon was April 30th. And so we were one of the fortunate ones that actually left on an airplane. So we were not boat people, but we were, in the refugee camp for quite some time. And that in itself, not the unknown, right? The unknown of not knowing what's all going on and what's the next step. And so
hold on a second. How old were you?
I was just a year old. So I was just a baby in diapers. Yeah. If you can imagine, I mean, I didn't realize the impact of what that must have felt like for my mother, because, when you're a kid growing up, you don't really think about what it's like for your parents. You only know the things that are happening to you. You're very self-absorbed in that way, right?
Well, and not only that, but you're also dependent. So, you have that dynamic. But as a kid, kids think of, something brand new, not as traumatic, but as an adventure. Oh, wow, we get to go on a plane, or wow, that's a boat. Not thinking of hey, it could tip over, or, all of our earthly belongings or what we're carrying on our back. That's something that your mom has had to deal with. So, now growing up in what state did you come to when you first arrived in the U.S.?
Well, when we first arrived, it was in California at Camp Pendleton. So that was the refugee camp that pretty much a lot of Vietnamese people ended up at. And so we were in Camp Pendleton for a good 6 months before we had sponsors. And then once we had sponsors, we ended up coming to Arizona. So our sponsors were in Arizona. I grew up in Flagstaff. So I grew up in a hippie town. So the majority of my friends' parents, protested the war. And so for me as an American kid, because I truly wanted to be an American kid, I grew up in a non-Asian community and even was going to a Catholic school. And so I wanted
white neighborhood, I might add.
Yes, it was. And, and I just, I thought my mom was really ridiculous because she never let me spend the night at my friends' homes. And she always say Vietnamese girls don't spend the night at other people's homes. But now, once I had my own children and realized, the dangers that you can have leaving your children with other people, my mom didn't speak the language fluently. So first of all, how was she going to communicate with the other parents? And secondly, like I was telling you, most of the other parents had protested the war. So she's not even sure how they're really going to receive me, because from her understanding, they didn't even want the war. And do they even want the Vietnamese people here? So that was a lot of, I'm sure, questions that were at hand, and she didn't, and not being able, and having that language barrier, not being able to communicate that and work through that.
Zena, mother love translates any language, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Mother's into, and your intuition, you're talking about spirit now. So now what you're talking about is when you're channeling that information, she's not just coming from, she isn't coming from a shoot from the lip or shoot from the hip type of reaction. She understands clear and present danger. She understands that if she had stayed where she was, that she may not survive. And she did what she best could do, which was to take the opportunity and seize the opportunity, because think of how many people don't seize that opportunity. And I think about just the way I grew up. I may have grown up with a lot of siblings and, learned how to be more demonstrative and get attention. But I never had to worry about somebody coming into my country or me having to leave my country all of a sudden and run for the hills, because it was clear and present danger. So your mom came here, she's got trauma that she's dealing with, but her instincts are unbelievable. And in the same way, instinctively, what is right for your own children. And the fact that you found the beauty of a relationship, and okay, sometimes we have to try out a couple of them before we get to them, right? You found somebody that would share your dream. You found somebody that not only shared your dream, but shared the responsibility of that dream, because it's not enough to have a dream. It's not, if you never have an action plan, if you never have the kinds of things that you need to have to make that dream come to fruition, well, it's just a dream with no plans, right? It'll never be realized. Talk to me about the first time you realized that you have a guy that you're going to be able to build a life with and build your first dream.
Well, the time that I realized, and I'm going to, really be real and honest here. I also at that time came to really have a relationship with Jesus. And so for the first time, I was consulting on what to do and how to go about it. And I knew that Chris was the one that I was going to marry, but I had a lot of doubts, because I will tell you, because I had so much had to work through, that my internal compass wasn't quite registering real well, because, I didn't necessarily have the sparks fly right off the bat. And I normally was very attracted to bad boys. If you lined up 10 guys along the wall and there was only one bad boy on that wall, I would pick the bad boy.
I would have picked the runner up.
and so I always say God set us up, because it was a blind date. Because honestly, I don't know that we would have thought to go out on a date had we just met each other, because I wasn't his type and he wasn't my type. But yet, getting on the phone and having somebody suggest that we should have a conversation and suggest that we meet up was that catalyst.
Now, hold on a second, because this works the same way in business. Referrals, right?
Yes.
When you get a referral, it is like the next best thing to a warm hug that you can possibly imagine, because it's really the endorsement that somebody else has given that bridges that gap for which there would otherwise be a very, very large gap. But that referral, whether it's in personal life or whether it's in a personal relationship or it's in a business introduction or relationship, somebody has had an experience with you. So we don't often think, I should be giving good first impressions. You obviously made an impression on this woman that she thought enough that whether you were doing business with her or whatever it was, she felt compelled. Oh, there's an opportunity for this person. I just met this person for this one to meet over here. Like you said, you may not have had that inclination. You might have met and just kept going. That chance meeting at the supermarket in the vegetable section, or an introduction, a referral, that is so deep and so good. Keep going.
Yes.
More.
Well, and part of the healing process too is knowing that sometimes you need external help and an external counsel, an external voice. So, and that same thing goes with business, that when you do not have the experience or the knowledge or the wherewithal, that it's so important to have mentors that you surround yourself with. And when they're advising you to do certain things and you don't understand, but you're like, but you know what? I trust this person. I trust their advice. So I'm going to go for it, even though I don't have full understanding. And it's the same thing in this situation, is that I knew I didn't really have the full, I was still healing. So I was not in a full, and I wasn't really honestly looking to get married again. I'll be truthful. Had just gotten out of a bad relationship. The last thing I wanted was to jump into another marriage right away. That was not, what I was looking for, but God had other plans. And as I was healing, he brought somebody along to also help me with the healing process. And in that, we developed a very deep, connected relationship in a way that I didn't realize that you could really have. You watch movies and you read books and you think, oh, you're supposed to have sparks flying right off the bat, otherwise they're not the one. But sometimes love.
Wait a minute. I think that's just in Hollywood, and we know what happens. All you have to do is read the trade rags and know that those don't last very long. What you found was something meaningful. So not only do you get the introduction, but you are aware that you need to be healed. You're aware that you're not quite ready. And, we hear it in God's time, not our time. Right. So, now you've progressed. What comes first, the opportunity to work closely with him in ministry, or do you actually get married?
Well, so as far as, I was a single mom, so I didn't do a lot of ministry, and I was also new to the church. So I was attending. So our dates comprised of going to a lot of church functions. So we had church
There's
services.
nothing wrong with that. I'll tell you what, that's how I grew up.
Yeah. And it's actually great because to be honest, and, a guy that's really willing to come to church and be, in that environment is definitely a much better guy to hang around with than one that wants to hang out at the bars all the time. So, so it's not that. And
what you're talking about is core values. Also, you're talking about your core values, what's important to you. And your core values are something that are going to be translated and also communicated to your children, because it's the most important things to you. So your core values, you want to be able to share with the person that you're going to be sharing your life with. If you don't have that simpatico that's going on there, then you're really testing fate, aren't you? You're really testing to see, can this last beyond, and now you're questioning things and decisions that he's doing or that he's making, or you're questioning his integrity. You don't do that when you're matching when you are making your core values the most important thing, that it's the overarching piece that holds you together.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And so, at the point that I knew he was going to be somebody, but even in the relationship, we had a lot of ups and downs. I was the first one. He said that he loved me. And then 2 weeks later, he broke up with me because he scared the bejeebies out of himself. But basically fast forward, we got married, and he has been an amazing husband, amazing father. But even in the first years of marriages, was a lot of rough spots. But this time around, Linda, when I interviewed you, you talk about tenacity and persistence and not giving up so easily. And I
Correct.
think the same thing applies in marriage, is that too many people give up too easily. So if you've got two people who really want to be in the marriage, just because things aren't going well, just because communication doesn't go well, doesn't mean you throw in the towel right away necessarily. But it does take two. It can't be a one-way street. It is a relationship. So both parties have to want the same thing. And when we went into the marriage, I asked him, because I had a failed marriage, I said, are you going to put our marriage as a priority? And if we ever need counseling, or if we ever need anything, are you willing to go do that? Because I wanted to know right off the bat this time, because the last one wasn't willing to do any of that. And he said, absolutely. I said, okay, then we can enter this marriage if I know that you're fully committed, that no matter what happens, that the rough spots, if we need help, you're willing to seek it. And so I joke around, but there's a lot of truth to this, that we've been married for 19 years, but it's probably the last 5 years that we really feel like we've gotten into a great groove and a great flow. And it's taken that long to really learn the communication style, the nuances, the learning to become one, learning to dream together instead of feeling like you're at odds with each other, having
Or
two different
competing
dreams.
with each other.
Yes. Yes. And of course, and we also start out with having children right away. I mean, my children were young. My daughter was 5 and my son was 3. And so we didn't have that couple of years of just us trying to build that. We had, a whole lot of other things going on along with building our relationship. And so I think many times that delayed it. Plus, he was in law enforcement when I first married him. So you add that component, that you don't really see the partner.
You don't even know if he's going to come home.
And you don't know if he's going to come home. And you don't know what emotions he's going to carry home. If he carries home emotions. I mean, as an officer, they experience many things and see many things that the majority of us don't, right? And
Right.
so yeah, there's a lot of unknowns. And not only that, but, if he's on the night shift, our sleep schedule's off. And so for many years, I still felt like I was a single mom. I talked about having a husband. My bank account showed that there was a paycheck coming in. But as far as, us seeing each other and actually having time to communicate and be husband and wife, those times were few and far between. And so there were a lot of challenges, in those first years of learning to navigate. And it was really great, though. I will say that when you have a partner that is willing to take a look at themselves, even when it's hard, even when you have to have hard conversations, and same goes for me. I mean, there were times that he had to say, listen, I think we need to talk, and
You're
yeah,
like, right.
and learning what that really is, because the reality is that most of us don't really know how to really have a good discussion. We are reactive. Sometimes when we get in the heat of the moment and emotions are flying, we're so busy trying to figure out how we're going to respond to whatever they just said that we're not even listening to our spouse.
Right. We're thinking about what we're going to say next.
Yes. And so learning to listen, learning to give your spouse that space to express themselves, whether you agree or you see it that way or not, is irrelevant at this moment. Let your spouse express the feelings that they have. And then, we've learned, and we've counseled many couples on this. So whether you agree or not is irrelevant. At that moment, you need to say, thank you for sharing that. I did not know that was how you felt. And right there.
I think that one thing that a huge difference between men and women. A man says, hey, we need to talk. That doesn't sound so scary, right? But I think as women, when we say to a guy, okay, we need to talk, they're like, oh crap, I don't want to deal with emotions, and I'm going to have to deal with your emotions. And I think sometimes we forget as women that does sound kind of threatening, and we could say, don't worry, you're not in trouble. I just want to talk over a couple of things. They can put them at ease so they don't come into a conversation with you defensive, right?
I'm glad you brought up that, because men and women are wired very differently. I don't know if you've heard of Mark Grunger, but you should look him up on YouTube, because he has a great explanation of the male brain and the female brain. And the male brain, he has boxes, little boxes that are in his brain all over. And the key to those boxes is that they're separated. None of them touch at any time. So he has a box for football. He has a box for wife. He has a box for children. He has a box for this and that. And he also has a box for nothing, which they truly have a box for nothing. And a woman's brain
explains so much.
She got wires all over the place, and everything's connected. So we can't separate anything. Everything is connected.
But wait, that box for the emotional conversation and the emotional vulnerability, I think it's really, really small. What do you think?
Yes, and so definitely learning each other's communication style, learning each other's languages is ultra important. For instance, we can absolutely say the same thing. And so Dr. Emerson Eggerichs talks about this too, that man hears through the blue hearing phones, and that women hear through the pink. But we can be saying the same thing, but mean totally two different things. For instance, if a woman says she has nothing to wear, what does she really mean? But the man's like, what do you mean you have nothing to wear? You got a whole closet full of clothes. But if a man says, I have nothing to wear, so it's the same phrase, same words, what does he mean? And a wife goes out and buys him a new shirt. Well, the wife, when she says, I have nothing to wear, she means I have nothing new to wear. So it doesn't, but when a man says I have nothing to wear, he means he has nothing clean to wear. And it's funny because we, over the years, we've kind of asked
what we mean.
Yeah. So, but we said the exact same thing, right? So until we learn to decipher that, okay, when my husband says that, that's what he really means. It's not what I think he means. Let me find out what he really means. Same thing on my end. When I say something, he can't just assume from his man ears that I meant what he thinks it is. It's that he needs to ask, so tell me what that means, or tell me a little bit more. And so it does take time to learn that communication.
Well, I also think that women talk in clues. Okay, we give hints. Like, why didn't he take the hints? I asked him, is today a special date? Not particularly. I mean, I gave him a clue that it was my birthday. Why don't we just say it's my birthday? Don't forget it. Right? We leave clues, and I think that women do that with each other as well. I know when I'm in my I call it my man mode. When I'm in a highly focused, I'm going to go close this transaction. I'm going to do this. I am deaf to clues. I am so focused on, I'm going to get this done, and here are the 3 steps that I need to take to do it, right? And then I'm very clear and I'm extremely articulate in my conversations with somebody. We're going to do it this way, and then we're going to do that next, and then here's the 3rd thing, and then we'll be successful with it, right? When I'm in that mode, I don't hear my mom or my sister or typical conversations that we go, oh, I know what you need. We're not in that. I'm not in that charitable space. But for a man who lives in that space all the time, it must be so confusing to them to hear our requests and when we talk about what it is that we want, or we're just trying to convey a moment of importance or significance, and we just leave it as a clue.
Right. And that is another excellent point. As a wife, we have to be direct. Tell him what you want. Give him the list of items for gift ideas. Don't just be like, oh, if he loves me enough, he would know. He would have been paying attention.
Ladies, that's the clues that I'm talking about. You give him a list, just exactly what Zena just said. Not, if he really loved me, he'd understand what it is that I want. And if he was paying attention, I've told him 6 times what my favorite perfume is. And my favorite color of fuchsia, he got me a pair of black pumps, right? So we can be very genuine and intentional so that we get what we want.
Yes. Yes. And like any relationship, communication is key. It is so important that we learn each other's and don't compare notes because everybody is unique and different. So don't be like, well, so and so down the street responds this way. How come my wife doesn't respond this way? Your wife is different. And so you have to communicate with her and find out what her language is. What does she mean? And when she does this, what does that mean? What are the cues? When she says, I'm fine, is she really fine? Or what does that really mean?
That's the perfect point. Okay. So the word fine has at least, I'm going to say 60 interpretations. How are you? Fine. Would you like to go somewhere? Sure. I'd like to go over here. Fine. Okay. It's in our tone. It's in it's in our body language. It's in our eyebrows. It's in our lipstick, and it falls right off of our lips, and we pretend that everything is fine. Why do we do that?
Sometimes we don't even know why we do those things, right? I mean,
I was really hoping for an answer on this one, Zena.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I tell my husband. Sometimes when I say go away, I don't really mean go away. I mean, come close and hug me. And then sometimes when I say go away, I really do mean go away. So I don't know.
And we wonder why they don't understand us. We don't even understand ourselves.
That is the truth. And so that's okay to realize and recognize that, because now, he's had to say, okay, do you want me to stay? Like, now the question has to change, right? Not, are you okay? Now the question needs to be, would you like for me to stay? So learning about who you are and what you need is ultra, ultra important. And you had asked that earlier, when you're looking for a partner, what are the things that you look for, and be specific. Well, sometimes you don't even really know what it is that you truly need, because sometimes your wants are very different than what your needs are. Sure. But there are some very core things that are, you have to know what is a deal breaker, right? What is a deal breaker in a relationship? And you better know that up front. Like knowing the objections when you're doing sale, you better know what the objections are up front. Right? What's going to not make this deal work? And so if you can navigate through that and know that right off the bat, that's going to save a lot of headaches for sure. And, it truly comes down to, if each partner really would focus on the other person's needs, like if I go into my day and I think, what can I do today to bless my husband? What can I do to make his day a better day? And then he also thinks the same way. What can I do to make my wife's day a better day? It makes it such a wonderful, harmonious day, and you feel so accepted and you feel so loved and respected. Where if I go into a day like, okay, what does he need to do for me today for me to be happy? And if he doesn't comply, then, I'm going to just be really upset all day long.
And there'll be hell to pay.
Yeah, exactly. And so changing your mindset, for sure, changing your attitude, and being grateful, because let's face it, none of us are perfect. Some of us may appear perfect on social media and everybody looks like they're having such a grand old time. But the reality is that none of us are perfect. We have our not so nice moments, not so pretty moments, and our spouses get to see that side of us more than other people get to see. And so we have to give each other a lot of grace, and also know that the other spouse has good intentions. My husband didn't really have ill intentions towards me. He didn't marry me to say, how can I make this woman's life a miserable hell? That was not the intent, and so I shouldn't go into thinking that that's his motive when he just keeps, missing the mark or whatever. Or if I miss the mark, that he doesn't see that too. And so it really, truly is just, and I think that's probably why it takes a while. So, because I read a study, and this was a little while ago, that it really takes a good 12 to 14 years of marriage to really feel like you do have connection. Like if you can make it to that point, that you are more likely going to be able to do better, because I think it takes that long to truly develop that communication, to really develop that, okay, what can we do together to really become one on the vision? What can we dream together? How do we go about this? and so there's just a lot. And so when you throw owning a business together and working together all the time, marriage is hard enough as it is, right? In and of itself. But then when you I went from not seeing him much, I was talking about how he was in law enforcement, not seeing him much, and to seeing him all the time. Well, you want to talk about an adjustment.
No
You're in my
kidding.
space
No,
a
and
lot.
I'm certain that, during the COVID lockdown, everybody went through that same experience. But you said something a minute ago, and it's really bothering me because I've been married twice, and in both instances, if I added up all the years of being married, they don't even come close to the 14 year of being able to communicate with each other. And I'm thinking to myself, do I want to spend 14 years trying to figure out if this is how to make this work? I know that you're doing couples therapy you're working with couples on this level. So, and the reason why you work with the coach is to cut the amount of time it takes you to get something done.
Correct.
Are you able to cut down that 14 years and find a more productive and harmonious time so that the couple can get to the part of the living, loving part faster?
Yes, that is exactly the why, and why we felt like this was a very well needed area, because there's so many entrepreneurial couples that get into business together. And yes, 12, 14 years is a long time to figure this stuff out. And so we want to help you accelerate and not make the mistakes that we made, and learn from the things that we have learned along the way, and give you that gift of being able to going from just being partners to powerhouses in whatever you do. That there's something really special energetically when a couple truly is in flow and synergistic and harmonious. I've worked in the dental field for many years, and sometimes I've worked for married couples within the office. And let me tell you, when they were in a fight, every staff member knew from the moment they walked through that door. And so, yeah, exactly. Like, oh, we know what kind of day this is going to be, when the spouses are already, you feel the tension. And so that's not a productive day, no matter what happens. If both partners are not in sync, you are just fighting and going against the grain. You're not going to be productive. And so if we can give you the tools, the communication tools, give you the skills, and because it's these things are learned. And again, I want to emphasize, it takes two, Linda. So just because you had two marriages that didn't work out doesn't mean you're a failure. And I want to emphasize that doesn't mean for anybody to feel like you're a failure. And I felt like that the first time, but the reality is that it's a learning lesson. If we can look at it as, what did I learn from this, and how can I grow from this? What I didn't want happening, because I observed this for many people, is that they married the same person, different name. They just repeated the pattern, which is also why I knew I had to heal internally. I had to figure out, why was I attracted to the same kind of bad boy? What was it in me that drew that magnetism in? It wasn't necessarily love, right? So I had to dig deep. And so I encourage you all to absolutely find a coach, because I don't necessarily think everybody needs to go through therapy or that sort of thing. But I think that coachings, most of us really need good mentors to be in our corner, to give us some advice from their experience, and and really thrive from it. So I really gleaned from my older friends that had been married a long time, and I watched them and I asked them, what makes your marriage so successful? How is it that you guys keep the spark alive? How is it that you, after 25 years, 30 years, that you still like each other? Because I've also seen the other end, that people can be married 50, 60 years, but you can tell they don't really like each other, just tolerating it, and they're married. Well, I didn't want just being married. I actually want a thriving marriage to really accomplish and truly live that abundant life. And to truly be successful in life is to have that that relationship, because your partner relationship with your spouse is the ultimate relationship that we have here on earth. And so when we can truly find that harmony and sync, we can conquer the world. When two are better than one, in Ecclesiastes, it talks about how two are better than one. For if one falls, you have somebody else to pick you up, and you can both also get to experience the fruits of your labor together. So there is something to be said that we were created to have some sort of partnership, and marriage is one of those ones. So if you have made that commitment, I definitely implore you to always look at improving. And I'm going to tell you, my husband and I have not arrived. We are still constantly learning from each other, because let's face it, individually, we're always growing and changing. We should be anyways. We shouldn't be complacent. And so I just implore you to constantly look at ways of how you can do better, be better, how, what things are needing to change to achieve the goals that you want to together. And it can be a very, very beautiful thing, and business will thrive. I mean, it's just truly a very rewarding thing. And so we definitely want to come along your side to give you that gift of going from partners and being powerhouses, because man, you can conquer the world together when you have that type of relationship. So, yeah. And like I said, I just really want to say that just because you have marriages didn't work out doesn't mean you're anything failure. It takes two people have to desire it.
So keep trying.
Yeah. Like anything else, right? It's not that you fell down. It's not that it's that you got to keep trying. Exactly. And to be honest, I think it's, you don't compromise either. I mean, know what deal breakers are, know what you are looking for, what would be best for you. But too many people compromise too. Oh, I better get married. I don't want to be alone. And so what they do is they settle, right? Just like
Right.
Linda, you don't want to settle in your business, because
Nope.
then you're not going to have room for the best if you settle. And so it's better to be alone than to be with the wrong person.
Hallelujah. You're preaching to the choir here, Zena. Preaching to the choir. Thank you so much for joining us today. If you would like to know more about Zena, go out to zenakrogedal.com and find out how you can use the relationship that you've got to improve the life that you want. So thank you so much for joining us today. And what a blessing. And, they say happy life, happy wife, happy life. But I think that happy relationship is the happy life. Don't you?
Absolutely. Linda, thank you so much for having me. It was a real honor to be here. And yes, absolutely. Happy relationship, happy life. So thank you again. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure. And thank you all for joining us today. I am always blessed with every single one of my guests that come on. There's something special and unique out of each and every one of them. And I hope that you got the joy that I did today. So stay tuned with us and join us again for Money Talk. Do you like to talk about money? If you do and you'd like to be a guest, contact me at lindakay360.com.